The night was cold on the alien planet of Virella. The moons were hidden behind thick clouds and the streets were silent, except for the sound of a girl's footsteps. Her name was Lixa. She was just 15, small, thin, and always hungry. Her long silver hair was dirty, and her clothes were full of holes. She held a tiny bag close to her chest. Inside were shiny trinkets she made from junk. Buttons, wires, broken glass. She sold them to stay alive. No one cared about her. Alien shopkeepers yelled at her, "Go away, street rat." Guards looked the other way. Rich aliens passed without a glance. She walked through the city's dark alleys, hoping to find someone, kind enough to buy one thing, just enough for food. Then she heard it, laughing, deep, cruel voices. "Hey, look who we have here." Lixa froze. 3 alien street bandits stepped out from the shadows. One was tall and green-skinned, another had glowing red eyes, and the third had metal claws. She knew them. Everyone in the streets did. They stole, beat, and sometimes worse. Lixa tried to turn and run, but they moved fast. One grabbed her arm. "Got anything for us tonight, trash girl?" "No, please," she cried. "It's just junk. Let me go." They snatched the bag from her hand. Her eyes filled with tears. One bandit poured the trinkets onto the ground and laughed. "You call this treasure?" Another slapped her hard. "You've been selling in our streets. That means you owe us." "But I didn't sell anything today, please." The third kicked her in the stomach. She fell to her knees, coughing. "Then you're no use to anyone." They hit her again, grabbed her coat, and even took her shoes. Then they walked away, laughing loudly, leaving her barefoot, bleeding and shaking on the dirty street. Lixa lay there, trying not to cry. Her lips trembled. "Mom, I miss you." Her mother had died 2 years ago. Since then, Lixa had no one. Just the streets and pain. Her body hurt. Her hands were scraped. She curled up against a trash bin, hugging her arms around herself. The wind blew harder and the cold touched her bones. She thought, maybe this is it. Maybe tonight I don't wake up. The alley was quiet again. Not a soul in sight. But then, footsteps. She tried to move, afraid the bandits had come back. She couldn't run. She had no strength left. The footsteps got closer. A tall figure stepped into the light. It was a human. She had seen 1 or 2 humans before. They were rare here. Most people looked down on them. Weak, slow, strange. The man had a thick jacket and strong boots. He paused when he saw her. She looked away. "Don't look at me," she thought. "I'm nothing." But he didn't walk away. He walked closer, knelt beside her and said softly, "Are you all right?" She didn't answer. He gently touched her shoulder. She flinched. "Easy," he said. "I'm not going to hurt you." His voice was warm, calm, not like the others. He looked around. "Where's your family?" She stayed silent. He sighed, took off his jacket and wrapped it around her. The warmth made her shiver. "What's your name?" "Lixa," she whispered. "Lixa." "I'm Reed," he said. "Come on, I'll get you somewhere warm." He tried to lift her. She weakly pushed him. "Don't touch me." But Reed didn't stop. He carefully picked her up like she was made of glass. She wanted to fight, but her head dropped on his shoulder. She had no energy. She expected him to throw her in a cell, or sell her, or leave her somewhere worse. But instead, he walked for a long time, holding her the whole way. Then the warm scent of oil and metal filled her nose. A small, quiet workshop door opened with a buzz. Lights clicked on inside. Tools and machines sat on the tables. A warm heater buzzed in the corner. Reed laid her on a couch, wrapped a blanket around her, and placed a cup of warm broth on the table. "You can rest now," he said. Then he turned away and began working on something. He didn't ask questions, didn't touch her again. Lixa's tired eyes watched him from under the blanket. Why did he help her? No one ever did. Was this a trick? Or was this human different? Her fingers slowly tightened around the warm cup. For the first time in years, she was warm, and for the first time in her life, someone looked at her like she was worth saving. Lixa opened her eyes slowly. For a second, she forgot where she was. No pain, no cold, just soft fabric around her and a strange humming sound in the background. Then the memory returned. The bandits, the beating, the human. She sat up fast, heart racing. Her eyes darted around the small room. Machines stood on every wall. Tools hung on hooks. There were wires, gears, and glowing parts everywhere. It wasn't a prison. It wasn't a hospital. It looked like a workshop. She tried to move, but her leg hurt badly. She looked down. Her feet were cleaned and wrapped. Someone had bandaged her cuts too, and next to her, on a small table, was a steaming bowl of soup, a cup of water, and a piece of bread. She blinked. Was this a dream? Before she could think more, a voice spoke behind her. "You're awake." She turned quickly and saw him, the human from last night. He wasn't big or scary. He had short brown hair, tired eyes, and oil stains on his hands. His jacket now hung by the door, and his shirt had small burn marks on it. He smiled gently. "Don't worry, I didn't touch anything I didn't have to. You were freezing." She stared at him in silence. Her voice had disappeared. He didn't get angry. Instead, he sat on a stool across the room and picked up a broken engine part. "Name's Reed. I fix old junk for a living." Lixa still didn't speak. He pointed toward the soup. "You should eat before it gets cold." Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. But she looked at the spoon like it was poison, he noticed. "Don't worry. I didn't put anything in it. Just soup and herbs. Nothing weird." She slowly reached for the bowl with shaking hands. She took one sip, then another, then 3 more without breathing. The warmth burned her tongue, but she didn't stop. Reed didn't say a word. He just watched her, like someone watching a bird too afraid to fly. When she finished, she wiped her mouth and looked at him again. "Why?" she whispered. He blinked. "Why what? Why help me?" Reed scratched the back of his neck. "You looked like you needed help." "No one ever helps me. I'm not no one." His voice was calm. "You were bleeding. I couldn't just leave you." She looked away. "Most people do." "I'm not most people either," he said. Silence fell again. Lixa glanced at the open shelves. She saw something shining. Her eyes widened. "My bag," she gasped. Reed turned, saw where she was looking, and nodded. "Yeah, I found it in the alley. Looked like you made those yourself. Pretty clever, actually." She quickly stood, limped to the shelf, and grabbed her trinkets. One was cracked, one had a piece missing, but they were hers. All she had in the world. "You didn't throw them away?" "Why would I?" Reed shrugged. "People throw too many things away without knowing their value." She looked at him again, but this time it was different. Not fear, not hate, just confusion. "I thought humans were bad," she said. Reed raised an eyebrow. "And I thought aliens hated humans. They do." He smiled. "Well, lucky for both of us, I don't follow what people say." Lixa sat back down slowly. Then Reed did something strange. He picked up one of her broken trinkets, a small star-shaped pendant, and began to fix it. Carefully, like it mattered. He soldered a loose edge and added a wire from his toolbox. She watched, her eyes wide. "You know how to fix it?" "Kind of. I tinker." "You have talent, Lixa." Hearing her name from someone else's mouth felt strange. Almost nice. "You said you fixed junk?" she asked. He nodded. "Old machines, ship parts, heaters, even toys. I make things work again." She looked around the room. Half the machines were old or rusty, but they were alive. The workshop had warmth, not just from the heater, but from the life inside it. and Lixa realized she wasn't scared anymore. Still confused, yes, but not scared. Not here. She picked up a small wire coil and turned it in her hand. "Can I help?" Reed smiled again. "Sure, but only if you promise not to stab me." She blinked, then let out a tiny laugh. Just one. He laughed too. For the first time in years, someone made her laugh, and that night, Lixa didn't sleep in the cold. She didn't dream of pain. She sat in the corner of the workshop working beside the human, watching him, learning from him, and deep in her heart, something small lit up again. Hope. Days passed. Lixa didn't leave the workshop, not because she was trapped. Reed never locked the door. Not because she was weak, her wounds were healing, but because for the first time in her life, she didn't want to leave. The warmth here wasn't just from the heater. It was in the quiet hum of machines. It was in the soft blanket she now called her own. It was in the way Reed always made sure to leave food on the table, without ever asking questions. Each morning he greeted her the same way. "Still alive, Scrap Princess?" It made her smile. Each evening they worked together. At first, Lixa just watched, but she was smart, quicker than any mechanic Reed had met. She knew how to find wires in broken junk, how to fix them with melted crystal pins, and how to create beauty from trash. Reed started calling her his little engineer, but still Lixa barely spoke. One afternoon, she sat in a corner, turning a copper ring in her hand. It had been part of her mother's old bracelet, one she'd lost when the bandits attacked. Reed noticed her quiet sadness. "Want to talk about it?" he asked gently. She shook her head. Reed didn't push. Instead, he handed her a small cube. "Help me with this?" She wiped her face and nodded. They worked side by side for hours, turning wires and adjusting small gears. The silence wasn't awkward. It felt peaceful, like they both understood what the other didn't say. When the power cube finally lit up with a low buzz, Lixa gasped. "I did it!" Reed grinned. "We did it. You've got good hands." That night, as Reed cooked something in the corner, Lixa wandered to the mirror in the washroom. Her reflection startled her. Her face looked cleaner now. Her hair was brushed. There were still scars, but under her skin something had changed. She looked alive. Just then, Reed's voice called, "Soup's done. Hurry or I'll eat both bowls." She smirked. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I would," he teased. She came out, sat at the small table, and for the first time, they ate together. Halfway through, she put down her spoon and asked, "Why, do you live here all alone?" Reed looked up. His eyes didn't change, but something heavy moved behind them. "I used to work for a big repair company on Earth," he said, "but I didn't like how they treated people. Machines were more valuable than lives, so I left." "You left your planet?" He nodded. "Been hopping from one junk world to another ever since." "Why this place?" she asked. Reed smiled, faintly. "Because no one here tells me who to be. I get to choose who I help." Lixa looked down at her bowl. "And you chose me?" He met her eyes. "Yes, and I'd do it again." A long pause. Lixa blinked fast, hiding the water in her eyes. No one had ever chosen her before. Later that night, as the wind howled outside, and strange alien sirens echoed in the distance, Lixa sat curled up near the heater with a tool set in her lap. Reed was asleep on his bench, a wrench still in his hand. She looked at him quietly. He could have left me there, she thought. He could have sold me, ignored me, hurt me, but he didn't. He gave her space. He gave her tools. He gave her worth. Then her eyes fell on the shelf above the workbench, her old trinkets, now cleaned, polished, and shining under the light. He hadn't just saved her body. He had saved the parts of her she thought were gone forever. Suddenly, a loud thump came from outside. Lixa jumped. She turned off the heater, moved quietly to the door, and peeked through the crack. Two shadowy figures stood outside. They didn't knock. They were watching, whispering. Bandits. She closed the door slowly, heart racing. Not now, she thought. Not tonight. Please, not again. She looked at Reed. He hadn't woken up. Lixa walked over, picked up a small metal rod and sat near the door, eyes locked on the shadows. She would protect this place, because it was more than a workshop now. It was home. Lixa didn't sleep that night. She sat near the workshop door, holding a steel rod tightly in both hands. Her eyes stayed fixed on the small window. The shadows outside had moved, but she wasn't sure if they were gone. The heater was off. The room was cold again, but she didn't care. She wasn't the same scared girl who had cried in that alley. Now, she had something to protect. Reed. Just before sunrise, she finally leaned back, too tired to keep her eyes open. But before her head could fall, she heard footsteps again. Fast. Heavy. Bang! Bang! A loud knock hit the workshop door. Lixa jumped to her feet. Reed woke up, confused. What the hell? Another bang shook the metal. Reed walked to the door, rubbing his eyes. Probably someone trying to sell junk. But Lixa rushed in front of him. Wait. She looked up at him. It's them. The bandits. Reed's face changed instantly. How do you know? I saw them last night. They watched the place. Reed's voice turned serious. Back up, stay behind me. But Lixa grabbed his arm. No, you can't face them alone. He hesitated. The knocking turned into pounding. Then came a voice, low and mocking. Open up, human. We're not here to break your toys. Just want to chat. Reed narrowed his eyes. That's the big one, Kroll. Lixa's heart pounded. Kroll was the worst of them. Reed grabbed a long wrench and pulled open the side panel of the wall, revealing a hidden passage behind a tool rack. You know this place better than me now. Get inside. Stay down. Lixa stepped back, but didn't go in. I'm not leaving you. Reed's voice rose. Lixa, please. But it was too late. The door burst open with a flash and a boom. Metal bent. Sparks flew. 3 aliens stormed in. Kroll, the clawed one, and the one with red eyes. The warmth of the workshop vanished. The air turned cold and cruel. Reed stood tall, holding his wrench. You broke my door, Kroll grinned, and we'll break more than that if you don't give her up. She's not yours. She's not yours either. She's not property, Reed growled. Red Eyes sneered. She's street junk, same as trash. Lixa stepped out from behind the table. Her voice was shaking, but she forced herself to speak. I'm not trash. All 3 bandits turned toward her. Kroll laughed. She speaks now. Got a little courage, huh? Reed moved in front of her again. Kroll snapped his fingers. Take them both. The clawed one leapt forward. Reed blocked the swing with his wrench, sparks flying. Red Eyes rushed around the table, heading for Lixa. She grabbed a small flash grenade from the shelf, something she had fixed days ago. With a cry, she threw it hard into the floor. Boom, a flash. Of white light filled the room. The bandit screamed and stumbled. Reed didn't waste time. He swung his wrench hard, crack, right into the clawed one's chest. The alien crashed into the wall, groaning. Lixa picked up her old steel rod and ran toward Red Eyes. Her hands trembled, but her heart didn't. She swung, missed, swung again, this time hitting him on the shoulder. He growled and tried to grab her, but Reed tackled him from behind. Kroll, now recovered, roared and raised a blaster. Enough! Everyone froze. Lixa stared at the weapon. The barrel pointed straight at Reed. Her knees felt weak, but Reed didn't back down. He took 1 step forward. Go ahead, shoot. Kroll hesitated. You think no one will notice? Reed continued. You attack a human, they'll report it to the Planet Patrol. They don't like humans, but they hate noise and paperwork even more. Kroll's finger twitched. You're not worth the risk, Reed said. Get out. A long silence passed. Then Kroll spat on the floor. This isn't over. He turned and stormed out, dragging the other 2 with him. The door slammed shut. Lixa dropped the rod. Her hands shook. Reed slumped down on a chair, breathing heavily. Silence. Then, Lixa whispered, I didn't run. Reed looked at her and smiled, tired but proud. No, you didn't. She walked over to him, her voice breaking. You could have died. Why didn't you run? Because. He looked into her eyes. You're not trash, Lixa. You're a person. Someone worth protecting. Lixa couldn't stop the tears this time. She knelt beside him and hugged him, tight, not because she was scared, not because she was weak, but because she finally understood. She mattered. Reed's hands were still shaking as he set his broken wrench on the table. Blood ran down his arm from a deep scratch. The workshop was a mess. Tools scattered, wires ripped, one table smashed. The heater had shut down during the fight, and cold air crept in again. But they were alive, and for the first time, Lixa didn't feel powerless. She swept the floor with her foot, her eyes locked on the broken blaster one of the bandits had dropped. She picked it up. Heavy. Dangerous. Her hands were small but steady. I thought they were going to kill you, she whispered. Reed winced as he pressed cloth against his wound. They wanted to scare us, but we scared them back. Lixa looked at him sharply. You could have died. He looked up. So could you. But I fought. Yes. He smiled. You did. Lixa stood taller. I'm not going back to who I was. I'm not hiding anymore. Outside, snow began to fall. Cold white dust settled on the shattered door. Reed saw her standing there in silence, covered in oil, dust, and scratches, yet she looked stronger than ever. Not like a child, like someone who had survived the storm. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a silver chain, her mother's broken bracelet, fixed. She gasped. Where did you? Found it in the alley, same night I found you. Took me a while to repair the clasp. He handed it to her. You should have it. She touched the bracelet carefully and tied it around her wrist. It's the only thing I have from her. No, Reed said softly. Now you have more. Lixa looked up. He pointed around the room. This workshop, these tools, me. Something changed in her eyes. Not just gratitude, connection. She had never had anyone before. Not like this. Not someone who stood up for her. Not someone who bled for her. Not someone who saw her as family. She turned away quickly, brushing her eyes with her sleeve. Reed leaned back. We need to fix the door. If those thugs come again, they will, Lixa said. Bandits like that don't stop until they feel pain or fear. Reed looked at her. And what do you suggest? She smiled faintly. Let's give them both. That day, they didn't rest. They worked side by side, cleaning the place, repairing, the heater reinforcing the door with scrap metal. Lixa rewired the alarm system. Reed reloaded the traps he hadn't touched in years. They turned the workshop into a fortress. But more than that, something inside them both was being rebuilt. Trust, purpose, a future. At night, Reed cooked stew using the last of the dried meat. He offered her the bigger bowl. She refused and pushed it back to him. You bled more. He laughed. Fair enough. After eating, they sat by the heater again, quiet but comfortable. Then, Lixa asked something strange. Why don't you leave this planet? Reed paused. I could. I've saved enough credits to fix up my old ship. So why stay here? He looked at her, his voice low. Because the only thing I ever found worth saving was here. Lixa stared at him, heart thudding. He meant it, no lies, no tricks, just truth. And in that moment, something strong formed inside her chest. A bond, a fire, a reason to keep going. I'll help you fix your ship one day, she said. But not yet. Reed smiled. Not yet. Suddenly, the door sensor beeped. A signal flashed red. Someone was nearby. Reed stood. Lixa moved faster. She pressed the security switch, activating the new defense net. A low hum filled the air. Sparks flickered along the doorframe. Then a shadow moved past the window and kept walking. They waited in silence. After a moment, Reed turned to her. "Guess the message is working." Lixa nodded. The fear that once controlled her was gone. Now she wasn't just a survivor. She was a protector too. She looked down at the tools in her belt and whispered, more to herself than anyone, "They'll never hurt us again." A week passed. The workshop no longer looked like a battlefield. The door was fixed, thicker, stronger, and reinforced with scrap panels that Lixa painted with bright symbols. The heater worked better now. The machines had been cleaned and reorganized, but the biggest change? The silence had changed. It was no longer heavy and sad. Now, it was calm, peaceful, safe. Lixa walked through the workshop with confidence. Her limp was gone. Her face was no longer hollow. She wore clean clothes Reed had stitched together from spare fabric. Around her neck hung the repaired bracelet of her mother, now shining like new. Each day she helped Reed repair devices, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She liked the work. She liked the quiet humming of tools, the soft click of gears fitting together, and she liked Reed's company. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it was honest, warm, and never forced. One morning, as they shared breakfast, Lixa asked, "Were you always kind?" Reed looked up from his mug. "No, I used to be angry. At everything, at people, at systems, even at myself." "What changed?" He shrugged. "Someone once helped me. No questions asked. I never forgot it." She looked into her bowl, thinking, quietly. Reed smiled. "Now it's your turn." "My turn? To live. To be more than what the streets made you." Lixa looked up. Her voice was soft. "I want that. I really do." Later that day they went outside together for the first time. The sky was cloudy, but the air was fresh. Lixa walked beside Reed through the scrap field behind the shop. Old machines and rusted ships lay buried in piles. Birds flew above, metal-winged creatures that sang high-pitched mechanical songs. She laughed. "That one sounds like a kettle." Reed smirked. "We call them steam sparrows. They search the field for useful parts." Lixa found an old scanner. "Can we fix this?" Reed examined it. "Looks fried, but maybe." She grinned. Challenge accepted. Back at the workshop, they worked on it together. Hours passed like minutes. By evening, the scanner blinked. Beep. It worked. They high-fived. It was awkward, clumsy, but real. That night, as the heater warmed the room, Lixa sat with a sketch pad Reed had given her. "I can't draw," she said. "Neither can I," Reed replied. "But no one's judging." She started drawing a memory, her mother smiling. The lines were shaky, but she smiled too. Reed was building a wind-powered lamp. He looked over and paused. "That your mom?" Lixa nodded. "She used to sing me to sleep, even when we had no bed." "You still remember her voice?" "Sometimes, when it's quiet enough." "I think I hear it." Reed didn't speak for a moment. Then softly he said, "Maybe she's proud of you right now." Lixa wiped her eyes, but not with shame. These weren't tears of fear or pain. These were the kind that washed old wounds. Days turned into a rhythm: work, laugh, learn, rest. Lixa started building things of her own. A small music box that played a soft tune. A rotating lamp that filled the room with moving stars. Reed proudly displayed them on a shelf labeled Lixa's Creations. Every time she passed it, she smiled. One night, as rain fell gently on the roof, Lixa asked, "What if they come back?" Reed glanced up. "The bandits?" She nodded. Reed looked into her eyes. "Then we face them, together." She didn't feel fear, just strength. She looked around the room. This wasn't just a place with walls. It was a life. She had a routine. She had food. She had someone who saw her not as broken, but as becoming. Before going to bed, Lixa stood at the window. The rain had stopped. A single moon broke through the clouds. She whispered to it like she used to when she was small. "Thank you for letting me stay." And for the first time in her life, she believed that tomorrow would be better. The next morning started like any other. Lixa cleaned the workbench. Reed fixed a broken cooling unit. The small music box she built played in the background, filling the air with gentle notes. But just before noon, the warning alarm flashed red. Someone was coming. Reed stood up fast. "That's the outer motion sensor." Lixa walked to the screen. The camera showed a large shadow at the edge of the scrapyard, too big to be an animal. Reed narrowed his eyes. One of them came back. Lixa didn't flinch. Kroll. It had to be him. Reed grabbed a tool. "Go to the back room. Stay hidden." But this time Lixa shook her head. "No. Lixa, it's not safe." She stepped forward. "You taught me how to build, how to fix, how to stand. I'm not hiding anymore." Reed saw it in her face. She meant it. She was no longer the fragile girl curled up in an alley. She was someone who had found her voice, her worth, and her fire. Kroll entered the yard, dragging a broken bot behind him. He shouted, "Human, I need repairs." Reed stepped outside, calm, strong. Lixa walked beside him. Kroll's eyes narrowed. "You're still alive, girl." She didn't answer. "You're bold now, huh?" He laughed. "That won't last." Reed folded his arms. "What do you want?" Kroll threw the broken bot at their feet. "Fix this, then maybe I'll forget about the last time." Reed didn't move. "No." Kroll stepped closer. "You saying no to me?" Lixa answered before Reed could. "Yes." "We're saying no." Kroll turned to her. "You don't speak to me, rat." Lixa stepped forward. "I'm not a rat. I'm the one who built that device, that fried your claws. Want to see what else I can make?" Kroll growled. "You think I won't break you again?" Lixa raised a small controller. "Try." The scrap walls around them clicked and shifted. Defense bots, half rusted, half repaired, stood up humming with power. Reed had helped build the frames, but the systems inside? All Lixa. Kroll stepped back. "You built these?" he asked. She nodded. "You see trash?" "I see weapons." He looked around, judging his odds. Reed stepped beside her. "Leave. And don't come back." Kroll stared long and hard. His pride kept him frozen. But then, he turned away. He muttered something foul under his breath and left. Alone this time. Inside the workshop, Reed leaned on the wall and let out a breath. That was bold. Lixa smiled. "You taught me well," he chuckled. "I didn't teach you that much." "No," she said, "but you gave me a place to become something." Reed nodded. "You gave yourself that." They cleaned up the tools together. Later, Reed made tea, his own strange earth blend that Lixa secretly liked. As they sat, the music box played again. Reed looked at her. "So what now?" Lixa looked around. "We keep fixing, building, living." Reed smiled. "That sounds like a plan." The next day, something surprising happened. A small alien boy appeared at their door, holding a broken toy. He didn't speak. Just held it out. Lixa bent down and smiled. "Come back tomorrow, I'll fix it." The boy nodded and ran off. Reed stared at her. She looked up. "What?" He laughed. "You're becoming more like me than I thought." She shook her head. "No. I'm becoming me." Weeks passed. The workshop gained a new name. Painted in bold letters above the door. Home of the forgotten. Fixers of all. Locals came, not many, just a few. Enough to keep them busy. Enough to remind Lixa that kindness spreads slowly, but it spreads. One evening, she sat on the roof. With Reed looking at the stars, she asked, "Do you still want to leave this planet?" He looked at her, thought for a moment, then said, "Not if you're here." Lixa smiled. The wind was soft. The world was still dangerous. Bandits still roamed. But something inside her had changed forever. She was no longer a victim. She was no longer invisible. She was Lixa, a builder, a protector, and someone who now stood for others. And if darkness came again, she would face it standing.